This presentation is covering the National 5 knowledge that some of you will have if you use that National 5 in S4. And for those of you who are crashing higher business, then this will be essential for you as some background knowledge. The slides in the presentation will give you background information as to why businesses exist and features of smaller businesses. These slides will not be questioned in the exam, but are important to give you some essential background knowledge, as I've said, especially if you're crashing higher business. The first thing we look at National 5 is really why businesses exist. What's the role of business? And it's very, very straightforward. It's to provide us, the consumer, with the goods and services that we want to buy. These goods and services can be broken down into two types. We have essential goods and services, we call these needs, and we obviously need these in order to survive. For example, food, clothing, water, shelter. We're not talking about really big houses or expensive food. When we talk about these things, we're talking about our basics that keep us alive. Wants, on the other hand, are luxuries, and these make our life more pleasurable. We purchase these with income that we earn. For example, iPads, holidays, mobile phones. Wants are not essential for survival. Goods are tangible, and what we mean by the word tangible means that we can see and touch them. Examples of goods are TVs, cars, and clothes. Goods can be broken up into two different types. They can be durable, which means they last for some time. A product that you buy, for example, a washing machine, you expect to be able to use the washing machine over and over again. Or non-durable, which means they're almost consumed almost immediately. Once you've read a newspaper, you've read it. Once you've eaten a burger, you've had the burger. So we call these non-durable. Services, these are things that we spend our money on, and people do these things for us. They provide us with these services, and we call these intangible. And examples of intangible services are the police, your hairdresser, insurance companies providing you with house insurance, home insurance, etc. And education, you can see your teacher, but your teacher is providing you with a service as far as education is concerned. In order to provide these goods and services, businesses need factors of production, and these are the resources we need. Our businesses need, to be able to provide these goods and services, as I've said, and there are four of them. We have land, which are the natural resources, the anything that comes from the land, or the physical fields or building sites or whatever that are there. Labour are the human resources, and these are obviously the people or the employees that businesses take on in order to perform the function for them. Capital, this is machinery, equipment. We call these the man-made resource. Machinery and equipment that businesses need to be able to do their job. So it could be, for example, cement mixers, it could be computers, it could be office equipment, anything like that. And finally, we've got enterprise. Now, this came up when you did the very first task for us, the very first home-based task, and you were asked to find a famous entrepreneur. So we explained a little bit about entrepreneurs to you then. And these are people who come up with a business idea. Now, coming up with the idea is not necessarily being an entrepreneur in itself. You actually have to put that idea into practice for you to be an entrepreneur. So you're coming up with the idea, you're putting it into practice, and you're taking the risk of the business being successful or not. And what your job also is as an entrepreneur is to combine all the other factors of production to provide the good or the service that you're choosing to provide. So as I say, we take this back to your famous entrepreneur. You don't have to be famous to be an entrepreneur, but there are lots of them out there, and that's what you did your little research task on a couple of weeks ago. Just using an example of Richard Branson and Virgin, entrepreneurs are obviously combining, as we've said, these factors of production. The entrepreneur brings them together, as we said. So Richard Branson came up with his idea. That was him being an entrepreneur and putting it into practice, of course, the important thing. He would buy or rent space to build factories or shops, so he would be buying land. That would be where that would come in, the natural resource. He'd hire the staff, who were the labour force, and he would buy the machinery and the equipment, which is the capital. So that's how the entrepreneur combines the factors of production, and remember, that's one of their big jobs. Just talking a little bit now about the business cycle and how it all comes about and how our economy works. And we've talked about the needs and wants that consumers want to buy. We need the businesses to provide these goods and services. When the business provides the goods and services we want to buy, consumers will then buy them. Now, we'll come back in a sec to how they actually manage to do that. All right. By buying goods and services, it provides profit for companies, wealth for companies, and employees also earn wages for working for these companies. It's using those wages consumers can then buy the goods and services, and this is the business cycle. So we have to have needs and wants. We have to want to buy things and have the money to do that in order for businesses to be successful. So we'll talk about this later on when we talk about external factors. And this is how the economy or the country slows down when people are not earning the money to buy the goods and services because shops or businesses are closing down. We've got a perfect example of that just now with the current coronavirus outbreak, when businesses are actually not producing the goods and services. Employees are not really being paid. I know some are being paid through furlough, but people are being made redundant, which means the economy has totally slowed down. So the business cycle has really slowed just now. And that's where this fits into business. So it's really interesting, and we've got a great example of it just now through the current coronavirus outbreak. Different sectors of industry. Now, we've got to be very careful here because we talk about sectors of industry and we talk about business sectors, and we're going to talk about the business sector shortly. But sectors of industry are how a business categorises itself, how it falls into one of 4 different sectors. And they're very, very easy to remember. It's a little bit like education. So you're starting off in the primary sector, and these are organisations or businesses that are taking the natural resources from the land. For example, mining, coal mining, diamond mining, anything you're getting naturally from the land through mining, fishing, farming. These are all examples of the primary sector. The business involved in that sector is taking natural resources from the land. The secondary sector is where you're using these resources that you've taken to produce or build something, manufacture something. So you could, for example, be, taking wheat from the fields. That would be the primary sector, and then the manufacturing or the secondary sector would be turning that wheat into something like bread or whatever. The tertiary sector are businesses that provide services. So that would be the retail sector, so the bread would then be sold in the shops. Or it could be tourism, it could be insurance, it could be banking. All of these things are the tertiary sector. The quaternary sector, those of you who have done National 5 will not be familiar with this because we just talked about primary, secondary and tertiary at Nat 5. We're now looking at a 4th sector, which is called the quaternary sector. And these are businesses that provide information, such as computing, IT consultancy. It could be research and development, web design, all these sorts of things that are in this new sector for all of us called the quaternary sector. Now, just so that fits in, this is not really that relevant, but quite interesting. It's not relevant to your course about being asked questions, etc., but it's really interesting to see how these sectors have changed over the years. So Britain was originally an economy that relied very much on the primary sector, on farming, on fishing, on things like that. However, as a result of industries such as shipbuilding, the secondary sector grew. However, it started to suffer in the 1970s as other countries were able to manufacture more cheaply than us. So we found that our manufacturing or secondary sector really started to fall, decline. So the UK economy had to come up with something else, and what's really happened now is we have a very large number of people employed in the tertiary sector. It became very dominant after the 70s into the 80s and 90s, employing at the time over 50% of the workforce, and this is pretty much still the case today. However, you can see from the last point on this, the trend is changing very slightly again, with the introduction of this quaternary sector, with IT, etc. And together, these two sectors employ around over 70% of the workforce in the UK. So you can see that how the sectors, the different sectors we've talked about, how it's changed in the UK over the time. And if you think about it, it's very much happened. Now, this next slide is actually going to give you a little video link. It's an American video that I found on YouTube. It's actually very good at explaining the different sectors. However, what I would say to you is when you watch it, it talks about this quinary sector. This is not part of the higher course, so you don't have to watch it as far as that. You might want to for interest, that's entirely up to you. But what I would like you to do is have a wee look at this video on YouTube. The link is there, and it lets you understand the different sectors of industry just a little bit better. What I would like you to do after that is make a note of 3 businesses that operate in each of the sectors, so that you fully understand different types of business and you can relate them to the different sectors. I talked to you earlier on about sectors of industry. Obviously, we've just finished that, and we're now looking at sectors of business or sectors of the economy. Now, these are both the same thing. Business sectors and sectors of the economy are just exactly the same thing. And these are how the business is owned, controlled, and financed. And there are 3 different sectors of business or sectors of the economy, and we're going to be looking at these in an awful lot more depth. The private sector are organisations that are owned and controlled by private individuals and investors, so people who are actually running a business to make a profit. The public sector are organisations that are owned and controlled by the government. So we have things like education, we have the health service, we have the police force, you have your local authorities providing you with refuse collection, street lighting, those sorts of things. These are the public sector. And then we have the third sector, and the third sector are those organisations that are set up to look after good causes, to raise money for good causes. Another type of organisation in there would be societies and organisations like golf clubs, etc., that are there to provide facilities for their members. As far as organisations raising money for good causes, we're looking big time here at charities, and we're also looking at social enterprises. Those of you who've done National 5 will have heard of social enterprises, but as I say, we're going to discuss this later on in the course. I'm really just trying to update you on the sort of beginning, the National 5 parts of the course. So as far as the private sector is concerned, we're really just going to talk about the organisations in the private sector that are really too small for us to discuss at higher, but it lets you see how they progress through, size-wise. So I'm going to talk about the first 3 types of these. Private limited companies do come up at higher, but we tend to concentrate on your big public limited companies. So sole traders, partnerships and private limited companies I'm going to talk to you about today. So these are just the different types of ownership in the private sector. As I say, I'm going to look at the first 3, and the second 3 we're going to save for the higher work for the next lot of slides next week. So sole traders are one man or one woman businesses. We like to get the women in there too. So one man, one woman business. The sole trader owns the business, and they provide their own capital. Now, it could be their own savings. They could have been made redundant from a job and decided to use the redundancy payment to set up a business, or they could have had a lottery win or an inheritance or whatever. So they can provide their own capital by using their own savings or borrowing from a bank. The profits all go to the owner, but what we've got to remember here is the owner is also responsible for any losses that the business makes. The owner controls the business, so all the decisions in the business come from the owner. It's their business and they can decide how they want to run it. Now, just looking at a couple of wee advantages and disadvantages here. For its advantages of the sole trader is it's really easy to set up. It's easy to set up a sole trader. Decisions can be made really quickly, and the reason for that is you're not having to go through other people, you're not having to make decisions together. The sole trader makes the decisions and they're theirs really. Profits are not shared, which is great. So if the business makes a lot of profit, they all go to the sole trader. You're not having to take a proportion of them. And your business affairs are kept private. You don't have to publish accounts. People don't have to know how much profit you've made. Clearly the taxman will, but other people, competitors, etc. are not party to your information, which is really good. However, there's limited capital. If you're a one-man business setting up your own business, it's going to be quite difficult for you to get hold of a lot of capital. You're relying on your own money, and banks are going to give you a limited amount. So you can see the limited amount of money for you to set up your business is going to be quite a big factor. We have this thing called unlimited liability, and I've put that in green to make it kind of stand out. An unlimited liability means you are responsible for all the debts of your business. So as a sole trader, every single penny you put in is lost, as well as your own personal possessions if they are required to be sold to pay back debts. And we call that unlimited liability. And it's very much off-putting for sole traders to set up these types of businesses. That's the big reason why you would probably not set up a sole trader, because you can lose all your money. It's a very long commitment as well. You've got long hours, you're working all day, every day. You don't have anyone to kind of take any of your workload from you, etc. So there's a big commitment too. What I will say here is a sole trader can employ staff, but the staff simply work for the sole trader. They're not there to make decisions, but a sole trader can have people working for them. They're a one-man business from the point of view that they are solely financing and controlling the business. So that's what makes them a sole trader. The next step up, if you're a sole trader and you feel as though you want to increase the size of your business, make your business bigger, then, I've just missed one there, that new ideas will be limited. One person is coming up with ideas as far as a sole trader is concerned. And, you're not getting different ideas from different people. So it might be that your business isn't going to be as competitive because you've not got a wide range of ideas. As I said, if your business, you want to increase the size of your business and you want more capital and you maybe want more input, then you can set up what's called a partnership. And a partnership is a business that's owned by 2 to 20 people. In order to set up the partnership, you have to have this deed of partnership or partnership agreement. And it's a contract that deals with how profits are going to be shared, who's going to be doing what, so roles and duties, and how much capital people are going to put into the business, as well as what happens if there's a disagreement among the partners. So this partnership agreement or deed of partnership is really important. It's owned jointly, but not always equally. So it depends on how much capital each partner puts into the business. That will determine the amount of say they have, and it will also determine the amount of profit they get at the end of the year. The capital, as I've said, is provided by partners, so each of the partners will contribute their share of capital, however much they can, and also they'll rely on loans from banks, etc. The profit goes to the partners, but as I've said to you before, not always equally, because if you put more capital into the business, you're going to be entitled to more profit. All partners are entitled to participate in management. That means every partner will have a say, maybe varying levels of say, but they'll have a say. However, there are people called silent partners who simply just want to contribute money to the partnership and take their share of profit without having any say in management. As I say, we call these silent partners. So looking at some advantages and disadvantages of partnerships, you can often attain more capital, more people, more capital. One person compared to 20 people, you're going to have a lot more capital there. Excessive hours can be cut down because you can share the workload because you've got people there to help you. More ideas being generated, more people have different ways of doing things and different thoughts. So that's going to make your business more competitive with others because you're going to have more ideas there. And specialisation can occur. It could be you've got one partner who specialises in one particular thing and the other partner is better at something else. A good example of that is in legal practices and lawyers' practices, where it's a sensible thing for the business to take on for partners to get together who specialise in different types of law. So one might specialise in family law, one might specialise in employment law, one might specialise in buying houses. So that's a really good idea, because you'll then be able to have someone who's really good at that particular part, and customers will be more likely to come to you because there's a wide selection of people and people can be really specialised at what they do. Disadvantages, however, the actions of one partner binds all. So someone can make a really poor decision and you're all in it together, which can be a problem. More discussion and consultation. So, decisions are not really made all that quickly because you maybe have to chat about things first among yourselves and come back with some ideas. So it takes longer for decisions to be made through this extra discussion. And there's a limitation in the number of partners. You can only have up to 20 partners for most partnerships, so you can't get any bigger than that. And finally, the big issue that we talked about with the sole trader, once again, you still have this unlimited liability. Remember, that's a situation where if the business is making losses, the partners will have to lose their personal possessions if they need to spend a lot of money paying off debts. So it's called unlimited liability, and that's quite serious. We talk about private limited companies briefly at Hire, but I thought I would just add this in today. Now, just to finish off, looking very quickly at some advantages and disadvantages of private limited companies, or LTDs as we call them. There's more capital than partnerships because you can have up to 50 people in a private limited company. We've now got this amazing thing called limited liability. What that means is you only lose what you put into the business. Your personal possessions are not up for grabs. So if you invest £10,000 in a business and the business fails, that's all you lose. The ownership is not lost to outsiders. So outsiders can't come into the business. You will pretty much choose who is going to be in your business. So with public limited companies, as we'll see it next time, people are buying shares and the business has absolutely no idea who these people are because they're being sold in the stock exchange. With limited companies, private limited companies, ownership isn't lost to outsiders. There's also less risk of the business failing because there's more capital in the business, there are more heads, there are more ideas, and it can tend to be a bigger company. Disadvantages, however, they must be registered with Companies House, so they have to be formal. They have to use formal documentation, which they don't have to do with sole traders and partnerships. Accounts have to be drawn up. You have to draw up your final accounts because these have to be seen by Companies House. Dividends are only paid to shareholders if profits are made. So you only receive a dividend if the business is making a profit. Therefore, you can be investing money in a business, and if it doesn't make a profit, then you don't get any dividend that year, which is an issue. And finally, the capital can be fairly limited because you can't sell your shares publicly on the stock exchange, so that can limit the amount of capital you have. Now, I hope this makes sense to you. Private limited companies are quite important for Hire. So, as I say, but I've just added this in here because we talked a little bit about it at National 5. Now, my suggestion to you here is you hopefully have now listened to the presentation. The way I tend to work is I ask classes to take notes. You will be given a set of notes in August. However, some people like to keep their own notes as well. Unfortunately, we're in a position where we can't give you a jotter just now, so you may want to take some notes down on paper. Some people find it much easier to learn their own notes than to learn notes out of a book. However, I'm going to leave that up to yourselves. Okay, there will be a task, not related to this. I'm going to attach a worksheet on sole traders, partnerships and private limited companies that you can fill in for yourself. That might be your way of taking notes. And we're going to attach a different task this week, a little bit of research that's going to be given on Tesco, and that's going to be attached with this. In future, you will be given tasks and past paper questions that will correlate with the work you're going to be given. The only reason we're not doing it this time is because this is work that some of you have already studied, and it's National 5 work. Thank you.